Welcome to the special YouTube edition of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week from Primus is Les Claypool. The band is currently on the road in support of their Chocolate Factory album. I had a chance to ask Les about that and, of course, his audition with Metallica back in 1986. Without further ado, because I have no co-hosts on the YouTube editions, let's get right into Les Claypool. Primus and the Chocolate Factory. What was the inspiration to do this album?
Well, I wanted to take on a sacred cow. This was a sacred cow that I'd been thinking about for a long time, and we were actually ending a Primus cycle, so I was going to do it with one of my
The
bands.
Frog Brigade?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. There's all kinds of different, fungi
Right.
band, Frog Brigade, Fancy Band, whatever the moniker. But I wanted to work with some of my guys. But then, along comes Herb back into the band, and it seemed silly to stop doing Primus. So I asked Lur and Tim if they wanted to do this Wonka thing for New Year's and bring in some of my Frog Brigade guys and or Fancy Fungi Band guys, and we did it, and it was amazing. So we decided to make a record and keep going. So here we are.
Yeah, now it's not the first time because you speaking of sacred cows, you did Pink Floyd's Animals in full with the Flying Frog Brigade. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, that was one of those things where I had just stopped doing Primus, and to keep myself from going insane, I purchased an old Airstream motorhome and filled it up with some of my favorite musicians and drove up and down the coast playing bars. And so I had a keyboardist all of a sudden. I had Jeff Comenti, and I'd always said if I had a keyboardist, I wanted to do Pigs, because it's one of my favorite songs. And so we learned Pigs, and then in the process we started learning some of the other songs. And I thought, well, shit, let's forget the opening band idea, and let's just do two sets, and the second set being Animals in its entirety. So we did it and recorded it, and I was amazed we were even able to pull it off.
Oh, isn't that funny? All right, so then let's go with what you did do. I do want to ask you about another band that you auditioned for, Metallica. That story has been told many times. Looking back on it, though, what do you remember about that 1986 audition?
I remember it was very loud.
Okay. That's it?
Well, that was the first thing that popped to mind. It was fucking loud. It was actually, Lars he was probably the most enthused about the audition. I knew Kirk, but they were all still pretty messed up by the whole Cliff Burton thing.
Right.
But James you could just tell he was like, who the hell is this fucking weirdo? I didn't fit the bill at all. I showed up with a bass that looked like a hunk of driftwood. I had two different colored tennis shoes on. I had a bleach blonde mohawk underneath a newsboy cap. I just baggy skater pants. I didn't fit the bill especially Metallica back then. But it was fun. It was I enjoyed playing through Cliff's rig.
When Jason left the band years later, did you think of going back and trying for a second audition?
I wasn't asked.
You weren't asked. But you did end up on the Garage Inc. album, playing banjo of all things.
Correct.
I guess you had your moment with them. As far as Primus goes, it's been since 1995 that you recorded with what is considered sort of the classic lineup. How was it going back in the studio with the guys and putting down this new album?
Well, this album itself is such an odd bird that,
right.
It was definitely a different beast than trying to do Pork Soda or something like that. But it was great. It was an amazing time because we were sort of reinventing this very popular wheel, and
right.
Bringing Tim in and saying, hey, don't play a traditional drum kit. Here, build something. And we just piled a bunch of shit around him, and he started playing all this crazy, sort of orchestral percussion stuff, and it was really cool. So the experience was amazing. It was just it was a little different than what we would have done in a normal Primus album situation. Especially bringing in other people as well.
Yeah, and what is the plans in terms of recording for a next album? Is that something that you want to get to reasonably quickly, or do you want to?
We're not even thinking about it yet.
No. Huh? Primus has been known for the saying "Primus sucks," something that was said by the band years ago. Is that something that you embrace, or wish you had never sort of said? Wish had never been said.
I went through a period there where I was annoyed with it, but I'm totally fine. It's not something we encourage or discourage. It was something that sort of stuck to us way back in the day, and we embraced it and made T-shirts and all that whatnot.
Right.
And I find it endearing.
It is kind of endearing and kind of strange because. Again, when I was telling people I'm going to interview Les, they said, "Oh, Primus sucks," and I go, "Well, why do you need to say that?" And they go, "No, it's on their T-shirts." The Country Fried.
Well, no, it's one of those things. Like if you're really in the know, because people that aren't in the know go, "Oh my God, oh that's horrible. Why? Oh my geez."
Yeah, I know.
Like years ago when we opened for U2 and we were playing these stadiums, and we're on. We were on right before U2, so the stadium was fairly full, not completely full. By the time we were done, it was full. But so these people are, drifting into the show, and there's, tens of thousands of people, and every now and again you'd hear from some distant, remote portion of the stadium, "Primus sucks, Primus sucks." You'd hear this, and all these U2 fans were like, oh, give these poor lads a chance. They didn't know what the hell was going on. But yet we knew, well, there's one of our guys. Oh, there's one of our guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sort of the, it lets you know that you're an old school fan. You're an OG Primus fan, I guess.
Yeah, it really does. About 30 years ago or 25 years ago, I walked into a record store, and the guy behind the counter would always suggest music, and he came up to me and he said, "You should really check out this band, Primus." And I said, "Sure, what do they do?" And he couldn't describe it. He goes, I have no way to describe it. It just is." What would you describe the music you do?
Well, it's funny because we've been going through this struggle with Wikipedia, who keeps listing us as a funk metal band, which just makes me want to, stick a pistol in my fucking eye socket. But we've decided that we play psychedelic Viking music. I think that's the best way to describe us.
Well, I don't know if the Vikings would agree. You did.
Come on, what are you talking about?
I mean, come on, right? My mom's Danish. We're part Viking. I'm not sure. You did the Duo de Twang last year. Any more Duo de Twang coming out?
Oh yeah, Duo de Twang that's my fuck off vacation band. That's what I do when I want to just go and drink on stage and crack jokes with an old high school buddy of mine.
And is that something that you plan on doing more of anytime soon?
I mean, there's always little Duo de Twang things popping up here and there.
I would imagine. Oh, all right. You're making it hard on me today, aren't you?
I am. What's that? What's hard about that? I mean, Duo de Twang is just, it's like I said, it's my vacation band. We get offered a gig, and if I can do it, I'll go do it. That's sort of what we do.
Other than the playing bass, what else would you like to do in terms of musically? Would you like to get into more producing or anything of that kind?
I don't know. I mean, I've been asked to do things on occasion, and I've done a couple things. It sort of depends, It's right now we're kind of looking at a few different options of things to do here in the future. I've always been a big film buff, and I made a film a handful of years ago, which about killed me. Obviously I wrote a novel, and so I tend to keep pretty busy.
Yeah.
We're making wine. I got this soda pop project. That's kind of my next thing. Creatively, yeah, I don't know. I got a few pots on the stove, but I don't like talking about them because I think it jinxes them. I'm not a superstitious guy, but that's one thing I've always been superstitious about is whenever I talk about things prior to them happening, it tends to make them go away.
Yeah, I sort of believe that too. Whenever I generally mention an interview before it actually happens, they tend to not call in or
They
something.
cancel on you. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And people go, "Well, why didn't you interview, James Hetfield?" I go, "Well, you know."
Yeah. I like counting the chickens after they hatch.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're playing Montreal in the next couple of days. What can fans expect in terms of a visual presentation?
It's pretty. It's there's a lot of visual elements to savor. Lots of eye candy, and I mean that figuratively and literally.
Well, I can imagine being all about a chocolate factory. Um, well, you know what?
It's a pretty elaborate production
In terms
for
of
for Primus. Yeah, I don't want to spill the beans too much, but there's a lot to absorb.
in terms of bass playing, uh, where do you see yourself in terms of the greats? You've mentioned being influenced by Paul McCartney and Geddy Lee and other stuff like that. Where do you see yourself in terms of the greats?
Well, I'm very sad that we lost Chris Squire last week.
Yes.
That was awful. And I had met Chris once, and I had actually just recently been thinking about, oh, I want to look him up and get together, and because I didn't really, I wanted to jam with the guy, and I never got to, and that just bums me out. But he was a big hero. Obviously, Geddy's an old buddy of mine. I recently got to play with Stanley Clark, which was amazing.
Wow.
He sat in with us at one of the Wonka shows actually, and he just totally kicked the shit out of me on stage. It was unbelievable. But it's great because as we move through life, and I'm sure this happens with people with me too, as you move through life, your heroes aren't quite as shiny as they used to be, in your mind, because you're, as the veil of youth starts to fade away, you start seeing things with a more realistic perspective, or you know what I'm saying? It's like going behind the scenes at Disneyland or something. And so to come across your heroes and have them still do something heroic that blows your mind, that's a fucking amazing feeling. So I got to have that with Stanley recently.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I grew up thinking that Kiss was the be all and end all, and the more I hear Gene Simmons talk, the more I think, wow, did I really fuck up for the last 40 years thinking this guy was great? I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's sort of the folly of, I've been asked to do a lot of like these kind of reality things and whatnot, and God, I just don't necessarily want the world to see all my fucking warts and pimples. It's like, there's something to be said about just staying under the radar.
Yeah, Primus has managed to, it's odd in a sense. Primus has been this under the radar, incredibly popular band at the same time. There's been an incredible dichotomy in your career. Do you sort of feel the same way?
I have no clue. It's funny to hear even somebody say that. I just think of us as this little band from Northern California that caught a wave years ago and rode it into the beach, and now we're back on the same beach making the same sandcastles we've always made. It's like, so I don't know. We just kind of do our thing, and I go out and make some racket or throw some Oompa Loompas on the stage, and we try and have fun and make a living at the same time.
That's a great thing. Les, a great pleasure talking to you today, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Montreal on July 15th at the Metropolis.
Great. Well, I'll see you then.
Thank you. There you have it, folks, my quite in-depth and revealing chat with Primus's Les Claypool. Check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, and head over to Facebook for the One-on-One with Mitch Lafon Facebook page. See ya.